Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the latest episode of An American in Thailand. We air this program every Friday and broadcast it to you from Ratchamakan, University of Technology, Peranakan. This program is coming to you in two parts. For the first part, I'll introduce a certain topic about being an American living here in Thailand. Could be about food, travel, culture, anything. Anything that might be different or interesting between America and the U.S. And Thailand. And then we will take a break in the second part of the program and get into examples and more specifics. Then we will have the news and the latest updates from the university, as always. Welcome, everyone. My name is Gary Gray, and I am your host here for An American in Thailand. And of course, I am an American. And I am here living in Thailand. I have been living here for nearly 8 years. The entire time I've been working here at Ratchamakan, University of Technology, Peranakan, here in Bangkok. So I have been living here in Bangkok for the entire time. I've done a lot of traveling here in Thailand. And in fact, I visited Thailand several times before I moved here. So I've seen a lot of Thailand. There are still some parts I have not seen, like down in the southern part, which I would like to go to. But I have been around quite a lot of Thailand. So some of these programs, we will talk about travel. Talk about areas of Thailand that I've been to and what my experience is as kind of an outsider, as a foreigner in those cities. So we'll talk about that sometimes. Sometimes we'll talk about the food here. We talked a little bit about that with relation to kitchens and things like that a few episodes ago. But today, just because of what's been in the news lately, as of when we're recording this at least, we're recording this in kind of early to mid 2025, we're going to talk about politics. And some of that is going to be related to culture as well. That's why we're going to do it. Because there's a cultural link here. Culture impacts politics a lot. And history impacts culture. Some of this is also going to have to do with history. So we're going to talk about really the differences kind of between American and Thai politics and how culture influences them, things like that. I'm very much into politics, and right now in the world, politics has become a really big topic, especially because of things that are going on in America, in my country. So politics has become a big deal, and even though it's in America, it has kind of spread. Like the concerns about what America is doing have kind of spread around the world. Like just this weekend, before when I'm recording this, there were a whole lot of protests in America, but there were actually a lot of protests around the whole world. And they were protesting against, primarily against the American government and some of the things they're doing. So now in today's episode, I'm not really going to offer my opinion too much on what's better or worse, what's right or what's wrong. First of all, I'm not a Thai citizen, even though I have lived here a long time. So I'm affected by the policies. So I think I'm allowed to have an opinion. So if I gave you my opinion, okay, I shouldn't get in trouble for that. That shouldn't be a bad thing. Like, oh, tell the American to shut up. We don't need to hear from him. He's not Thai. I think it's okay for me to have an opinion. And I'm very involved in politics back in America. I'm still an American citizen. I still file my taxes there. Because of that, I can still vote there as well, since I pay my taxes and stuff like that. I can vote. Actually, I don't make enough money, so I don't usually owe taxes, but you still have to file them and say how much you make. So I still do all that. So I can still vote. So I still vote in the U.S. elections. So I'm very involved in politics. So I do have strong opinions. But this isn't about me telling you what's right, what's wrong, what's good, what's bad. We're all allowed to have our own political opinions. In fact, there's one difference in particular that we're going to talk about. And I will maybe get to that first, just because I'm mentioning it now. I'll maybe get to that one first, which is something that is done in Thai politics, which I think in American politics we would consider to be very, very weird. But I can't sit here and tell you that it's wrong, because I think there's a good reason for why it's done that way in Thailand. Now, I do know that a lot of Thai people also do think it's wrong, so a lot of Thai people don't like it, but it wouldn't be wrong for a Thai person to like it, because there is a reason for it. And what that is the difference in the structure of our government. We actually have something very similar. Very similar setup. We don't have the monarch that needs to approve stuff. We don't have that. But other than that, we have a very similar setup. You have two sides of Congress, which I'm not sure, maybe you call it, I'm not even sure what the name is here, the Parliament, or every country has different names. For example, in Britain, they have the same kind of setup as well. They have what's called the House of Lords, the House of Commons, and then they have the Prime Minister. I'm not sure what you call it here. I know there's the Senate. I'm not sure what the other side is called, whether you call it the House or the Parliament or what you call that. But you have the Senate, you have the other side, and then you have the Prime Minister. It's very similar in America. We have our Senate. The other side in America is called the House. It's called the House of Representatives, the House of Representatives. And we have our president, which is the same thing basically as being Prime Minister. Same thing. Some countries actually have a president and a prime minister, which gets a little confusing. Who's in charge? Not really sure. But in Thailand and America, we have kind of a similar setup. But what's different is in the Thai Senate, because of the way your constitution is written, there's pretty much a guarantee that the military will control the representation of the Senate. And what's interesting about that is that it's written into the Constitution. So how do you ever change that? I mean, the Constitution, a constitutional change in America, I'm not sure about here in Thailand, I'm not sure how you do it in Thailand, but I would assume it's going to be something similar, has to actually go through your Congress. So it has to go through your Senate and your other side, whatever you call that. We call that the House in America. So it has to go through the Senate and the House. And then the people vote on it as well. But it has to at least go through the Senate and the House. How are you ever going to change that if the Senate has to vote on it? So they would have to vote basically to give up their own power. Now, it's not impossible. We have seen that in some countries where things aren't going the right way. And so people decide, you know what? It's better if we step aside. Let's step aside. Let someone else try to do this. So it could happen, but it's very difficult. And so for that reason, that's the thing I was mentioning earlier, that most Americans would find weird. We don't have something like that in America. We vote directly on our senators, all of them. No one is guaranteed a position in the Senate. We don't guarantee even a group or a party, like the military, a certain number of seats in the Senate. But the reason I also told you that, I'm not really in a position to say that that's right or wrong. I mean, most Thai people I know don't really like that. But most Thai people I know, because I'm a teacher, are younger people. And of course, most younger people are going to be a little bit more looking for democracy, things like that. So it could just be the people I know. Because there's actually a reason why some people might actually like this here in Thailand. In Thailand's history, not even so long ago, they've had more than one coup. So some people, especially some older people who remember those days and don't like them, might think that this arrangement, the way the Senate is organized, gives stability. In other words, things can't change too much because you have this block of people who are always going to be in charge. Now, of course, the military people that are in there could change, I guess, so the actual people there might change over time. But generally, you've got this block of people, this group of people, that's not going to change. And so you've really got this stability there in the Senate. And so that could, for some Thai people, create a sense of comfort after having lived through some difficult times with coups happening and there being all that instability and all that danger and all that threat. And so that's why I said I'm not offering my opinion. Yes, it does look a little weird from an American standpoint where we would not do something like that. Well, I hope. I don't know. There's a lot of crazy stuff going on in America right now politically. But I would hope we would not do that. So that's not something we would do. But I can't say that's right or that's wrong, that's good or that's bad. That's not up to me to say. That's for the Thai people to decide how they want their government run and whether or not that's good. Because I can at least understand why some people would like that. Okay, so that's one difference we have. Another difference we have, which I find very interesting, is how we elect our prime minister or president. Prime minister here in Thailand, president in the U.S. Basically, it's the same position, though. So here in Thailand, you have elections, but it's more like for the party. I mean, you do elect a prime minister. Like in the last election, I believe it was Pita that got the most votes, but the party didn't have enough seats. Because then your parliament has to approve it. I'm not, even though I do follow politics closely, I follow them more in America, so I'm not an expert here at Thai politics. So I might get this a little tiny bit wrong, but I know that's basically right. You have to have the votes in the parliament in order to put the prime minister in place. And you have lots of different parties here in Thailand, which is another difference. We don't in America. So it's really, we don't even elect the prime minister that way. But if we did, the prime minister would be the one from the party who got the most votes. Because we don't have a bunch of different parties. So you don't have these groups that have to kind of come together, which is what we have here in Thailand, which is why we ended up with a different prime minister than that. here in Thailand. And again, I'm not going to say whether it's right or wrong, whether it's good or bad. As I said, because of the people I know, it's mostly young people because I'm a teacher. So sure, most of them wanted pita and they were disappointed, blah, blah, whatever. I don't have a strong opinion on that. I do have some opinion, but I'll keep that to myself. Like I said, I don't want to get myself in trouble. I don't want to be saying anything I'm not supposed to say about Thai politics. So I'm just explaining the difference here. So in America, it is much more of a direct vote for our president. It still isn't quite. It still is not quite that. For example, the first time Donald Trump was elected, you remember he used to be president, and then Joe Biden was president, and now he's president again. The first time he became president, he actually did not receive the most votes. He did not. Hillary Clinton got more votes. So it's not quite a direct vote. What we have in America is that, and this is why it's called the United States of America, is we give the states a lot of power. So what we do is, based on their population, we give each state basically a certain number of points. We have a name for it. It's called electors, but don't worry about that. It's basically points. We give each state a number of points. And each state's election determines who gets the points. Now, the trick here, and this is how you can win by getting fewer votes, like Donald Trump did. The trick here is that the winner of the state gets all the votes. So Donald Trump won a bunch of states by very close margins. So maybe only 10,000 votes here, 20,000 votes there, 50,000 votes there in that state. He still gets all the points from those states. And then Hillary Clinton wins California by 5 million votes. Well, it doesn't help her. She could have won by 1 vote, and she still would have gotten all the points for California. And so Hillary Clinton builds up this big lead in the overall number of votes. But Donald Trump still manages to get more of those points. Now, it is difficult to do that. So, I mean, that may sound terrible. It's like, well, how can the person that gets fewer votes? It's supposed to be a democracy. That's what America's known for, right? Democracy. How can the person that gets fewer votes win? It doesn't happen that often. Because, you know, everyone gets the same news. Everyone hears the same thing. So usually you get some similarities state to state. Yes, sure, there are states that are more liberal than other states. Yeah, sure. But there's going to be some general balance usually. It's not going to be that much out of balance. So it's hard to do that. It's hard to do that. But it can happen. In fact, we've had it happen twice in a short amount of period. It's only happened 3 times ever in America, but twice has been since 2000. Happened in 2000, happened in 2016. So it can happen. So that's how we elect our president. So our Congress, unlike here in Thailand, has nothing to do with it. They do have a process where they have to approve it, but it's basically just signing off on it. They don't, I mean, they could try to block it. They did try to do something like that in 2020, but that did not last very long. That was, or 2021, actually. The election was 2020, but then the new president comes in 2021, and that's when Congress approves it. And so they still approved it. It's never happened that Congress hasn't approved that. So that's how we do it in America. I would say another difference between Thailand and America in terms of politics is the focus on politics. I would say that for the most part, the Thai people seem to be less engaged, less interested in politics. Now, I say for the most part. We have certainly seen times where there have been lots of protests and things like that. My university is right near a government house, and so we've actually been affected by that. When there's been protests and things like that, we've had to have online classes sometimes because there's stuff going on. So I don't want to make it sound like Thai people don't care about their politics, because if you say that, you're almost saying that they don't even care about their country. Of course they do. Of course Thai people do. It's just that in America, almost everything gets into politics. Everything. Everything. Culturally, especially. Everything. They will... Stuff that should not have anything to do with politics, they'll make it political. And that's not necessarily a good thing. That's why I say I'm not really saying something bad about Thais not being as engaged in politics. Sometimes maybe that's a bad thing. Maybe Thai people don't learn enough about their candidates and maybe don't make better choices. I don't know. But it's hard to say that Americans make the right choices either, because a lot of Americans get fed misinformation, and so they're not necessarily making the right choices. So I don't know that it's better that Americans are more engaged. It may not be. It may be worse because, again, they turn everything into politics. Stuff that should have nothing to do with politics. For example, they're trying to do stuff with libraries where they're controlling what books are at libraries and things like that. It's a library. In my whole life, and I'm getting kind of old, in my whole life, libraries have never been political. And yes, they may have some books there that are controversial. America is supposed to be about freedom, you know? So sure, there's a controversial book at the library. And yes, kids go to libraries. Ooh, a kid, might see that book. So what? So what? And that gets to another issue there, and that is that there is some difference in freedoms, which I think is one of the reasons why Americans are more engaged. For example, in America, we have freedom of speech, and we have a freedom to protest. Now, that doesn't mean that here in Thailand there are no such freedoms at all around that. Like when we had a few years ago, there were a bunch of protests. During those protests, the government here usually let them go on. Sometimes, if things got a little crazy, they'd use their water cannons and spray water and things like that. So it wasn't always nice and peaceful and free, but generally, people are allowed to speak their minds. Like I said, my university is right here next to the government house, and there are protests out there all the time. So, yeah, there's still a lot of freedoms here in Thailand. It's one of the reasons I love Thailand. It's still a pretty free society. But those freedoms are guaranteed in the Constitution in America, so it's really difficult for the government to control that. So when people want to protest, they protest. When people want to say stuff, they say stuff. And they can say almost anything they want about almost anyone they want. I mean, you can't threaten someone, so you can't threaten to do something bad to a politician that you don't like. No, that's a threat. That's illegal. But if you want to say that they're crazy, evil, stupid, whatever bad thing you want to say about them, you can say whatever you want. And I think that is one of the reasons why Americans are more politically involved, politically engaged, because the difference in freedoms allows them to be. And in fact, it's even encouraged. It's the reason for those freedoms. The way America was set up about 250 years ago, that's when America was founded, a little less than that, 249 years ago. That's actually why. So that's why those freedoms are there. It's not just because you're free to speak about whatever you want. You can speak about whatever. No, it's about speaking against the government. It's specifically about that. And so you're actually encouraged to do that in American politics. So I think these explain a lot of the differences. Now, I did say we're going to talk about some of the cultural aspects, because I think that's interesting, because that's what we're here for, right? American and Thailand, we're here to talk about kind of the cultural differences. So I want to talk about how culture impacts these political things, and how history does as well, because history kind of relates to culture as well. We're going to talk about one of those issues there towards the end of our program, with history impacting culture, which then impacts politics. So we're going to take a little bit of a song break right now. We're going to take a break, and then when we come back, we're going to get into more of those cultural issues. So let's take a break right now. Welcome back to An American in Thailand. And so today we're talking about kind of the differences in politics between America and Thailand. And because this program is supposed to be more about culture, not so much about politics, I do want to tie some of the cultural differences in here as well. Mostly in the first part of the program. We just talked about the difference kind of in the structure and how we do things, how we elect our president, versus how in America, how Thailand elects their prime minister, things like that, and how our Senate, how it's designed, the makeup of it, is different, and the reason for why the people of America are engaged in politics at a different level than the people of Thailand. So what's kind of driving that? So one thing I'm trying not to do is give my opinion on politics. That's, as I mentioned in the first part, I have lived here in Thailand for 8 years. I plan on living here for a lot longer. So I am affected by politics here in Thailand. So I think it's okay for me to have an opinion, but, some people probably don't like that. I'm not a Thai citizen. I'm a Farang. Stay out of our politics. I also don't want to make you feel one way or the other about America or American politics by giving you my opinion, because you might think, oh, well, this is an American. He's an expert. No. America is almost evenly split. I do pay a lot of attention to politics. I would like to think I know a little bit more than some people, but America is almost evenly split. In fact, in our last election, Donald Trump got 49-point-something% of the vote, and Kamala Harris got 47-point-something% of the vote. The difference was less than 2%, and the winner did not even get the majority of the vote. Now, here in Thailand, the winner almost never gets the majority of the vote because you have a lot of different parties. So you're splitting up the vote in many pieces. Well, in America, we basically just have two parties. We do have a few really, really tiny parties. And those little tiny parties added up just enough to get a few percent, which held Donald Trump under 50%. So even though he won, the majority of Americans still voted against him. So America's very evenly split. So my opinion, half of America is going to agree with me, half of America is going to disagree with me. So my opinion is not really important for what we're discussing today. The only reason I would say my opinion might be important a little bit, and so I will mention it, is that I know that some of the things that are happening in America right now are making other countries angry at America. I should let you know, as I noted, with Donald Trump getting less than half of the vote, most people voting against him, I should let you know, as kind of someone representing America here in Thailand, that most Americans don't like what the American government is doing. He got less than half the vote. Most Americans voted against him, and his approval has gone down since he's been elected. So most Americans don't like what he's doing, and that includes me. So when you see what the American government is doing, if it makes you upset, if it makes you angry, like when they put tariffs that were so high on Thailand, they were very high on all of Southeast Asia. That could affect the economy here in Thailand, because it's going to be harder for you to sell products in America, because they're going to cost more for Americans, so they may not buy them, which hurts the economy back here in Thailand. So you may not like that policy. It might anger you. Just know that most Americans are on your side. We agree. And that includes me. But that's all I'm going to say about my opinion on politics, okay? So let's talk a little bit more about culture. We didn't talk about that too much, and that's really what this program is supposed to be about. Travel, culture, food, things like that. So let's talk about how culture impacts our politics, because I find it very interesting. Because most Westerners view Thailand as being very liberal. Most Thai people I know consider Thailand to be very conservative. Well, how can that be? How could that be? Thai people think Thailand's conservative. Westerners, especially Americans, think Thailand is liberal. How does that happen? How can that be? It's actually very easy. It has to do with what you're focused on. And this is where it comes into culture, because it's related to religion in the West. In America, Christianity is the number one religion. And you know, your religion tells you a lot about what's right, what's wrong, what you should do, what you can't do, what you can do, what you can't do. Teaches you a lot about moral things. That's what religion is there to do. So in Western culture, with that religious basis, they tend to be very conservative when it comes to moral issues, especially when it's related to things like sex and gay people and things like that. Whereas in Thailand, the culture here doesn't care so much about those issues. So there are other ways in which Thailand is more conservative. And so that's why Thai people view Thailand as conservative, because those issues that the West is conservative on just aren't really a big deal here, so we don't think about that. That just is what it is. So most Thai people think Thailand is conservative, while most Western people think Thailand is liberal. So it's very interesting that way. The difference in the way outside people, the way the Farangs would view Thailand compared to the way Thais view themselves as far as politics and culture. And this does affect politics, right? Because if you're conservative, you're probably going to vote for one certain group. If you're liberal, you're going to vote for a different group. And so that's one way in which culture is impacting politics. You also see history affecting politics a lot as well. One of the interesting things as far as America and Thailand and their relationship is that during World War II, Thailand actually originally sided with Japan. Now, there was some debate about that because Thailand was kind of forced into it. But there was some level of choosing to do that. And the reason was because a lot of Southeast Asia was angry at the Western countries for colonization. And they should be. That was not right. But by the end of World War II, Thailand was actually trying to side with America and with the Allies. And in fact, by the time you got to the Vietnam War, Thailand was actually an ally of the U.S. So you can see how that history, the history of colonialism caused Thailand to side with Japan during World War II, but they were kind of forced into it. They didn't really like that. Thailand didn't. So they pretty quickly went over to the Allied side, which was probably smart of them since the U.S. and Britain and all those countries won that war. That was probably smart of Thailand. And so ever since then, we've been allied with Thailand. But it is complicated. It is complicated because China has a lot of influence in Southeast Asia. So we see this. We see this with the politics, and again, it's also related to history as well, because the communism in Southeast Asia, which exists in a few countries here still. Laos is officially communist. Cambodia is officially communist. Vietnam's officially communist. That came from either Russia or China or both. So you still have a lot of Chinese influence here. And the reason I say you still see this in politics is the Thai military is very interesting. As far as, because China and America are not generally on the same side. But Thailand buys all of their submarines and most of their naval vessels from China. They buy all of their airplanes and their Air Force material from America. That is a very unique situation. I'm not sure there's any other country in the world that does that. I maybe because our relationship since the war back in the 60s and 70s, since our relationship with Vietnam has been improving, maybe they do, because I know they're not a big fan of China, even though they're both communists. They're not a big fan of China because China keeps trying to take some of their territory. I don't know. Maybe they do the same. But that is a very unique situation with what the Thai military does. And so again, this is all related to the history and the culture of the regions, and you still see China trying to have an influence here now today. They're the ones in charge of building the high-speed rail, which is, as far as I know, almost complete, because I know it's all the way done in Laos up through Vientiane. I'm not sure how far it is in Thailand yet. I know it does not go up to Nong Khai yet. I go to Nong Khai frequently. And in fact, when we do one of our programs here about travel, one of our first ones will certainly be talking about Nong Khai. And I am almost 100% certain that there are not high-speed train tickets yet available to Nong Khai. So it's not done yet. The high-speed rail is not done here yet in Thailand. But I know it's progressing along, and it's just about done in Laos. It has extended through Vientiane, and it is open. So that is one of the Chinese projects here. And now it's going to be interesting to see what happens going forward for the next few years, because now America, with their new administration, is taking on more of an isolationist policy. That means they don't want to deal with outside countries. So they've cut off a lot of foreign aid. That's probably a really bad thing with what's going on in Myanmar right now, because the U.S. was the country that provided the most aid to Myanmar before the earthquake. And now that they've had the earthquake there, We'll have to see how much help the United States provides there. So they've cut off a lot of aid. We've also seen them introduce those tariffs, which we talked about. That's like a tax that Americans will pay, but it's stuff that comes from other countries. So Thailand, Vietnam, Cambodia, China will have a harder time selling things in America, which will probably hurt the economies over here. So is that going to hurt the relationship that Thailand has with America? Obviously, this program is an American in Thailand. I'm here in Thailand. I love Thailand. I hope it doesn't hurt our relationship, but the policies are probably going to hurt Thailand, so I couldn't blame Thailand if they were a little bit upset by what's going on. But that's happening around the world. So it's because America has put those tariffs on basically the entire world. So it will be interesting to see what happens over the next few years while this new administration is in charge in America, and to see what happens politically between the two countries. It will be interesting few years. As I said, I'm trying not to offer my opinion too much, but I am not in favor of what's going on in America right now, so I'm not feeling very good about how it's going to go over the next few years, but I hope it goes well. And if it doesn't, I hope we can turn it around in a few years when we have a new election in America. Like I said, our elections in America, one of the differences, I talked about this in the first part of the program, is that we have more direct elections there. So it's a lot easier to know who wins. Like here in Thailand, you remember we had to go through many votes in the parliament to see who was going to be the next prime minister. In America, we know as soon as we have the election because it's more of a direct vote. Not exactly direct, but it's closer to something like that. Okay, so those are kind of the differences between American and Thai politics and how we structure our governments there and how culture plays a role in that. So that is pretty much it for this episode. I just wanted to talk about politics a little bit this time just because it's become such a big story in the world these days, especially with what's going on in America. And since I'm an American and that's what this program is kind of about, I wanted to focus on that a little bit today. And starting on our next program, we'll get back to the more fun topics of food and travel and things like that. So we'll talk about that more in our next episode. For now, thank you for joining us for today's An American in Thailand program. Please stay with us and tune back in next week for another interesting episode. And do not forget to subscribe to our channel. Thank you.